So it's not the uniparty that is against you. It's that your ambitions far exceeded what you could actually accomplish. You're embarrassed by that fact. Fine. But then don't come in here and be like, actually, we can blow up the whole thing and ruin the Republican Party because I failed.
Yeah, it was tremendous that he was willing to help pitch in for Trump's victory, but it was Trump's victory. No one else in the world could have took a bullet like that, hopped up, put his fist in the air and said, fight, fight, fight. You think you're going to try to take credit for that, W?
I don't care what you think about Donald Trump. He's the political athlete of our lifetime.
Yes.
What do soaring auto insurance rates and inflation have in common? Greedy billboard trial lawyers and fraud. You're paying more because trial lawyers are bilking the system. They're working with unscrupulous doctors to fake injuries and file fraudulent medical claims. They're conspiring with MS-13 gang members to recruit illegal immigrants for their bogus lawsuits. And while they're getting richer, hard-working Americans are getting crushed by higher auto insurance rates and higher inflation. Frivolous lawsuits are costing the average family over $4,000 a year in hidden taxes. It's a corrupt system. Greedy billboard trial lawyers use fraud and frivolous lawsuits to line their pockets. Then, they give millions to Democratic politicians to defend the racket. Lawsuit abuse and insurance fraud are a tax on you. But President Trump can stop their scam and make America affordable again. Ending lawsuit abuse is one more way to put America first. Paid for by Make America Affordable Again.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Very good Tuesday to you. Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety program. I'm Josh Holmes, along with Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, and John Ashbrook. Left to right across your radio dial as always. Fellas, we're here past the 4th of July. I'm going to get your takes on your weekends and everything. Obviously, hearts go out to people in Texas. Mm-hmm. This was one of the most devastating situations I think I've ever seen, just in terms of how quickly what can be just a beloved summer camping activity can turn into just mayhem. The profound loss of life as a result of it, and the heroism of people in the region trying to rescue children.
Yeah, no, and I have girls in a similar age range, and they went to camp in Pennsylvania this summer, and it is just every parent's worst nightmare. You send them off, you think, oh, they're going to have great summer fun, and then you see something like that in the news, and your heart breaks.
Yeah, we know a lot of you, and a lot of us, honestly, tangentially, know people who were affected in this situation, and we obviously are thinking about all of you and the region in Texas as it recovers. But we're going to put on a fun show nonetheless. We're going to get a little bit more of that because there are some really incredible stories. But there's more to talk about in the world of politics. Obviously, July 4, it's my favorite day. We covered it. Thank you for everybody who tuned into this special. I think we got a really, really good feedback on all of that. And it seems like the feedback that we got it indicates that people were... I felt like there was lacking some content out there, just celebrating just how awesome America is.
Yeah. I mean, it was a phenomenal episode. So many great things that highlighted how wonderful our country was, which needs to be done, which has been sorely lacking. You gentlemen did an excellent job of it.
Appreciate it.
And you unveiled the facial hair, which I think you should absolutely keep. I mean, it's a terrific look.
Yeah.
So the mustache, I mean, you kind of like tallied it up, Smash. The mustache had a reaction.
It was divisive, but ultimately I come down on the side of pro-stash.
You're pro-stash?
I am. I think every day you grow it longer, the more you look like Jack Sparrow.
I will say that there was a decisive split between the men who loved it and the women who
it's true.
Did not.
They want to undermine you because they know everyone loves it.
Well, we'll see how long this lasts. But you're getting it for a Tuesday episode after the 4th of July. Loved having it for the 4th.
Yes.
Big conversation starter at the 4th parties that I was at. And I listen, I had a wonderful 4th of July. We were amongst friends, just enjoying the way that you ought to do it. I know that, Duncan, you were out grilling some meats.
Yeah, well, I talked about it on the 4th of July episode, but I broke in my new green egg,
Yeah.
Nice.
which I loved.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
It looked like you had a nice piece of.
I had
meat
some
there.
ribs. I had ribs on there, and then I did some dogs and burgers for the kids and stuff. Remarkable. It was
Yeah.
a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Smash, you had family in town.
Yeah, we had family. We did dogs and burgers, and then I went out and played a round of golf with my brother-in-law and my nephew, and we had just an incredible time
Nice.
on Saturday.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's
Can't beat
hard.
that.
That's hard for me to imagine going out and playing golf at this particular
Yeah.
lot in my life.
Well, because Holmes and I both have younger boys,
Yeah.
and so we're sort of in the thick of it with activities and things and all of that sort of stuff. I have a question for you,
A top
Holmes.
hat and cane type.
Yeah. So I had a lot of responsibilities this weekend to get my son, my 5-year-old, ready for baseball camp.
Yes.
And so I took him to Dick's and got him outfitted and all that sort of stuff. And he was very excited.
Yeah.
And today was the first day of baseball camp. And I don't know about your boys, but if I showed up, he would not either not focus or be too hard on himself. So I don't want to be close to the diamond. I don't want to be in the dugout or any of that sort of stuff.
Well, it's all the psychology you have between you and your child,
Yeah.
and you know it before they do.
But how do you show up to a park and basically spy on a 5-year-old without people being like, "Who's this pedophile in the parking lot?"
Well, no, you got to watch out for that.
How do you do that? How do you-
Can I weigh in? Can I weigh
Yeah.
in? You have to stand in the front row and watch him at all times.
Oh, he wants the pressure.
You have
No.
to. You think Tiger Woods' dad was like, maybe I'll check in on him? No. You have to stand there and keep an eye on him. And better yet, have your phone out and record him every time he's up to the plate.
You cannot be surreptitious about showing up to your child's game, because
Yeah.
if there's a man anywhere that doesn't seem to be connected
with binoculars?
to a 5-year-old game,
Yeah.
it seems troubling. Now, I have the opposite issue in that my wife is just like a psycho when it comes to being competitive about stuff.
Hell yes.
And so when she shows up, it's problematic. I try to be encouraging. Well, look, as a parent, I imagine a lot of you listeners have thought through this too. As you're raising kids, particularly at the early age, you're trying to get them into big competitive sports and whatnot. You think about your own psychology and the things that were troubling for you, and if you could go back and redo it. And at least my oldest kid, he's got a lot of the things that I did. And confidence is everything. Mm-hmm. And if you have a little bit of confidence, you're ready to go and you're ready to do it. Different kids need different things. There are
Right.
other kids that need to be
They're all
just a
different.
full jab in the ass and be like, get your butt out there and play, and then they play better. I think I got my psychology okay, so I'm actually the one that's
Your boy's a slugger.
the third base coach.
You got to start thinking about NIL contracts at this point. He's designated hitter on the team at this point.
But he's if I'm not there, it's a bigger problem.
Oh.
But if my wife is there, hey, I don't know.
See, Joey's the opposite of that. Hardest on himself,
Yeah.
at all times, 100%.
That's
so
good mentality.
So if he saw me and he,
Then
struck out,
it's a double weight.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I got
And
to
I
be
felt
a little.
that.
I got to be a little more removed.
You have to cultivate it. You have
It's
to
already
cultivate
cultivated. He already wants to
I love
succeed.
the one guy who doesn't have kids
Is
is giving you the
telling me
lesson.
But that's
how
what
to-
always worked. That's what always worked. Whenever I had a thing and I saw my parents were there, it was now failure's a zero option for that to happen. Because the first thing that's going to happen, I'm going to hop in the car. My dad's like, well, you blew it, didn't you?
And that's why Comfortably Smug was a first-round draft pick in every sport that
That's
he
why.
ever played.
That's how you become a first-round pick.
Listen, what we're going to talk about is several different things here, but we're going to start with the America Party, just because I think it's taken over an awful lot of conversation on the political front that it, in our minds, is somewhere either between douchebaggery or complete nonsense that we just want to flush out and give you all of that. We're going to talk Texas. We're going to give you some variety. You're going to love some variety that we've got. And, we've got a great interview today with Josh Dawsey, a Wall Street Journal reporter. He's written a book. Been a friend of the program for a while. He's been a reluctant listener. He's one of those, those mainstream media types who listens to the program and is hate listens to it.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot better lately, though. He's gotten a lot better.
The one thing he is better than anything else is sourced amongst Republican politics.
He's at a very respectable publication now.
People trust
He's at the
him.
Journal.
People trust him, and I have found in my personal dealings to be an incredibly trustworthy individual, which is all you've ever asked for from a journo. You know, I mean, the biggest problems that we have with journalism today are people who don't even call sources. All they do is just write a narrative. They call like a Brennan Clapper, and get like the full rundown of what they're not allowed to talk about, but think is implicated here. And then they write up a story and do whatever. Guys like this, they're well sourced. He's trusted. I think he's a hell of a journalist. But more importantly, in books, when they come out from people like him, there's stories there.
Yeah.
Stuff you haven't seen anywhere else. And the biggest thing that we love, and I know that you guys love as the audience, is getting people to tell a story you haven't heard about Trump, about the campaign, about Kamala, about, you know, all the stuff that was happening behind the scenes. And there's been a lot that's come out, but you got to trust a guy like Dawsey is going to get to the bottom of it in a way, and he does. You got to stick in for that interview. So we've got all of that coming for you and more. Let's start with a little bit of the Elon. I'm just going to set the table for us, and then we can get to the analysis of what we think about all of that. So if we can put a graphic 1, if you don't mind, Wolf. So this is an X post where Musk threatens the third-party formation. If this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day. Our country needs an alternative to the Democrat-Republican uniparty so that the people actually have a voice. Okay, so this is very consistent with what led to the breakup of the Donald Trump-Elon Musk pairing, in that he figured out at some point that he didn't want to be for the big, beautiful bill. Big beauty, as I like to call it. The big beauty did a hell of a lot of good, and it got done in record time. Hats off to the Trump administration.
Huge.
Leader Thune, Speaker Johnson, and all of them for getting that done by the 4th of July.
I mean, that was an extra
Crazy.
like icing on the cake of the 4th of like, while you're with family celebrating, then you see Trump signing this bill and you see a B-2 bomber fly over. You're like, whoa, there's America is back, and there's America is back.
Right. The idea that the big beauty, as you say, which I think is a wonderful...
It's a big beauty.
Wonderful, wonderful term for the bill. The idea that that is evidence of a uniparty is ridiculous based on the facts. No Democrats voted for it.
Right.
So there is no uniparty.
Yeah.
And the idea of an America party is the greatest thing the Democrats have heard in 4 years.
I want to hold on the analysis piece, because I think we all have a lot to say on what all of this means. But just getting to the cadence of things that sets all of that up, graphic 2, if you don't mind. By a factor of 2 to 1, you want a new political party and you shall have it. Never mind the fact that it's a self-selecting Twitter poll on top of his own account.
Wait, a platform that he owns, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Correct.
Wait, is he American or is he from South Africa?
Well, he's born. He was. He has American citizenship, but
he's gonna be the vanguard for the America Party.
That's what I'm told.
Got it.
That's what's happening.
I just want to be clear.
No. It's important to get facts straight right up there. We're framing. We're in the framing business.
Yeah.
If we're framing, you ought to know all those.
Kind of a weird look.
Yeah. Let's throw this thing back up. When it comes to bankrupting our country with waste and graft, we live in a one-party system, not a democracy. Today, the American Party is formed to give you back your freedom. All right, so like ordinarily when somebody says something like this, it's like a Joe Walsh level hilarity, right? I mean, this is what Joe Walsh was kind of into, and it's funny because they're just dropping a firecracker into a well, essentially. I mean, it's just nonsense. But if you're to spend $300 million, as Elon Musk is reported to have done last election cycle, got to kind of pay attention to these things. And the proximity to he and the president, interesting. Well, so Trump reacts to this. Graphic 3, if you don't mind. I'm saddened to watch Elon Musk go completely, quote-unquote, off the rails, essentially becoming a train wreck, all caps, over the past 5 weeks. He wants to start a third political party despite the fact that they have never succeeded in the United States. That is, in fact, a fact. Can we put up the next graphic, please? The system seems not designed for them. The one thing third parties are good for is the creation of complete and total disruption and chaos, and we have enough of that with the radical left Democrats. So I'm sort of on board here. But he goes on to say, like, he explains why Elon basically is opposed to it, and he talked about this publicly with the big beauty and the elimination of electric vehicle mandates and electric vehicle tax credits and all of these things that presumably have an impact. Now, Trump assigns his concern entirely with the big beauty on that. And he might be right. Like, I don't know. I can't get in the head of Elon Musk. All I know is from our perspective, there's an awful lot of good things that Elon Musk has done over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Not the least of which is buying X and making free speech possible in America again. And when he and Trump were working together, one of those great things he delivered was as an asset in winning in 2024. So hopefully they can figure out a way to come back together. Maybe they won't be able to figure it out, but hopefully this doesn't happen because, as I was saying earlier, it's only a give to Democrats.
Well,
they're just not, though, right? Like, that's the thing. They're not. There's just no way, Ashbrook. Yeah. I mean, this is a guy who left his administration being like, you're in the Epstein list.
You're a pedophile.
You're a pedophile.
Yeah.
You should be impeached.
Yeah.
Like, that's what Elon Musk did on the way out the door. Now he's talking about a third party.
But
I've got to
the consequences of that.
What I don't want to.
Well, sure, they're horrible. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Let's do this. I think this is the dumbest fuck thing I've ever seen anyone do, and I want to get into it in grave detail because I know each one of us brings our own perspective to all of that, but I want to do it in a long form in a way that we can really take the cover off the ball.
Yeah.
Okay? So let's get to it right after this.
Our nation is standing up for American workers, restoring the pride of making products here at home. That's what we do every day. We're America's beverage companies, making American products with American workers in America's hometowns, delivering brands that have been enjoyed for generations, creating good-paying jobs, the kind that require only a strong work ethic. Because we believe in the promise of America and the people who make it great.
Elon Musk has spent a grand total of, I guess, a year and a half in American politics, hitched his wagon entirely to the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Appeared...
Has it been a year and a half? I think he hopped in after the assassination.
Yeah, after
attempt,
Butler.
Right?
Oh, I guess it's probably only been about a year.
been a year.
Almost a year now.
Yeah. I guess it's about a year.
Okay.
No, good correction. Not a long time.
That's it.
Not a long time. So, but he got on board, went full freight, appeared at mini rallies, showed up, and became sort of integral. First of all, I don't think the guy left Mar-a-Lago. Like, we were laughing for months about how at some point Trump, whether their relationship was working or not, would be like, do you have something else going on? Because, like, I'd like to have a Thanksgiving dinner that's not with Elon Musk. You know what I mean? It's just every single weekend there was nothing but pictures of Elon sitting next to Donald Trump. And it didn't matter what they were doing. It could be a rally. It could be a family dinner. It was like, oh, and there's Elon.
Bro, it's starting to be like, you know how you have a friend from college who shows up and you're like,
he's like pretty fun.
all right, I have like a house and a wife now, dude. Like,
Dude, it started to be like that. And we were talking about it in that would be the formal end where he would just be like, all right, man, like, I got a lot going on and I don't need to be in the Elon entertainment business. But it wasn't that. It actually was much more explosive than that. We've well documented what's happened over the last few months. But I get the sense that this is a guy, Elon Musk, who is not used to failure, right? He's somebody who is brilliant, who is capable of taking greater risks and greater reward than maybe anyone in our generation of Americans, that has produced more completely previously unthought of accomplishments in terms of SpaceX and all of that stuff. And one of the great entrepreneurs maybe in the history of the world, but then he gets into politics because he's interested in it. But he thinks he knows what he doesn't.
Well, I think part of that is reinforced by the fact he bought what is one of the most powerful political platforms in American politics, Twitter.
Yeah.
Created a system in which creators on that platform are incentivized to produce content directed at him for creator payouts. And he created a feedback loop of people telling him how great he was. And I think in that he kind of got lost in the sauce.
It's a dangerous thing because if you remember 3 or 4 years ago, when we talked about the formal downfall of the American media, it was related to social media in that they had cultivated an audience where that feedback loop was entirely related to what they were printing negatively about Donald Trump. So all they were hearing all day was like, yes, you put Trump in a body bag on this story or that story or whatever story. And our thought process, you can go back to 2021, 22, listen to the Variety program. This was a consistent discussion that we had where the American media's acute downfall, maybe always had a bias, but acute downfall was in the formation of what you're talking about, Duncan, and a feedback loop that only reinforced this perception.
Well, so just to put a finer point on it, I think a person who talks about stuff like the uniparty, right, or somebody who looks at the big beautiful bill, and is like, well, we didn't balance the budget and our debt's still out of control, which is true. Somebody who like makes that their personality is somebody who's way too online.
Yeah.
Who doesn't understand the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
Who like spends all their time getting replies from people who live in Malaysia talking about American politics rather than like, people who earn a paycheck in this country.
Yeah.
And like it poisons your brain into thinking that like you're the one with the answers. It's a seductive thing on the internet, dude. Never do it. Never do it, because that's the road to ruin. And I think that's what's happening to Elon right now, unfortunately, because like you said, he's a very smart guy. He's got a lot of great ideas. And I don't want to doubt him on this America Party thing, but I'm telling you,
it's ruinous.
It's ruinous.
Yeah. Smash, what was your...
Well, on the subject of it being ruinous, it's ruinous for a reason. You can say that you don't like that our debt is out of control. You can say that Washington can't come together and cut spending because of the uniparty or whatever it is you want to say. But the practical impact of a third party, the America Party, that tries to pull votes away from the Republicans, the practical impact of that is Democrats win in the midterm. And when Democrats win in the midterm, what do you think happens to the debt?
Right.
What do you think happens to spending in Washington? Republicans and conservatives have zero recourse if Democrats are in control. And a third party like that puts Democrats squarely in control. So the two things are incongruent. I want lower debt. I want less spending. And yet I don't want Republicans to have any say over how the government is run.
Well, so two things on that. So I 100% agree with you that like everything comes off the Republican side of the ledger with this third party called the America Party or whatever. Because you look at the Democratic Party and what they're excited about, AOC and this communist up in New York.
Yeah.
Like the idea that like this America Party would somehow find the 80% in the middle that just wants sensible government is ludicrous. Like the Democrats are communists. They want communism in this country. Like a third party is just going to draw off votes from the Republican Party. That's obviously true, right?
But there's also like if you spend 2 seconds in politics, and this is the part that really, it's the art.
Yeah.
That really aggrieves me. He knows a lot about things that I will never understand. He knows fucking next to nothing about American politics.
Okay, so that was my second part of the thing I wanted to say is like, I think what it really comes down to isn't the EV credits and the big beautiful bill or whatever. I know he obviously is against that, and he put out tweets being like, we're investing in energies of the past, not energies of the future, talking about solar and wind and batteries and everything that he makes from his business and Tesla. I don't think that's his driving force in this. I said it when, he had the black eye and had the whole fallout in a month ago or whatever. Bro tried to balance the budget on discretionary spending and failed.
Well, he told
it's
people,
as simple as that. He said he was going to do it, and God bless him for trying. God bless him for trying. And I think everything that DOGE found is entirely important, and we should get that in the rescission package, and that's fantastic. But if you've listened to this show for years, we have laughed at people who talk that way because that's not true. Our debt and our deficit
spent a second doing it.
is Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security. And if you're not willing to reform those programs, you're never going to get close to bending the cost curve of this government. So the idea that you're going to go ahead and do that, come up far short, get embarrassed by the fact, is how you end up now being like, well, there's this uniparty that's against me. And it's like, I get it. USAID and these foreign aid programs and everything will cut wasteful spending in this government. But like, it ain't going to do it, pal. So it's not the uniparty that is against you. It's that your ambitions far exceeded what you could actually accomplish. You're embarrassed by that fact. Fine. But then don't come in here and be like, actually, we can blow up the whole thing and ruin the Republican Party because I failed.
That's the thing, is I think you're 100% right. But I find more acute the reasoning for it is beyond just that. But the reason that irked him, and I think not being able to will a victory in Wisconsin for that judge election, I think that irked him. And it got after Elon's ego. That's what really got him. And the thing is that for a guy who's had such tremendous success in business and clearly has such competency in scaling businesses, probably better than any other living human if you look at the results of this, he needs to go back to what works. And here's the thing is, you know, yeah, it was tremendous that he was willing to help pitch in for Trump's victory, but it was Trump's victory. No one else in the world could have took a bullet like that, hopped up, put his fist in the air and said, fight, fight, fight. You think you're going to try to take credit for that, W?
I don't care what you think about Donald Trump. He's the political athlete of our lifetime.
Yes.
And I think you're saying kind of along the lines of what I'm saying, which is it goes back to the piece of advice that I got when I first became a Senate Chief of Staff from one of my predecessors who said, just remember, you know, when everybody's returning your call and everybody wants to see you, meet you, and be nice to you and everything, it has nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. It has everything to do with the guys whose name on the door that you walk through every day. And at some point, for a guy like Elon who can have anything he wants, but he spent 9 months on center stage with cheering thousands and getting huge applause lines, I think at some point he thought it was for him.
Mm.
Yep. I think you're right, dude.
I think he thought it was for him.
I think he got lost in the sauce. And here's the thing is, like, we've seen stocks hitting all-time highs. You know, this economy, this country, the world is thrilled with President Trump's results, how America is just, like, could not be in a better position. Stocks are hitting all-time highs. Tesla's down 25% so far this year. 2 weeks ago, Elon was like, listen, I'm going to stop focusing on politics. I'm going to focus more on business. That's, of course, what I'm the best at. And, you know, I want shareholders to know this is what I'm focused on. Then focus on it, dude. Focus on it. Because I'll tell you right now, this America party is not going anywhere. Like, so many people have tried to do this third-party thing, and it's always led to one thing, which is just, like, coming at the cost of helping Democrats.
Ask Ross Perot.
Ask Ross Perot.
Donald Trump knows. He ran on the Reform Party in 2000. He knows.
He knows. I mean, there was a reason why when he first ran for president, everybody was pushing Donald Trump to say, would you consider a third party? He was like, I'm not touching that. Wouldn't talk about it. But there are like two irrefutable facts when it comes to third parties in America. If you're trying to get anywhere close to sensible, anywhere close to limited government or anything like in a rational, logical decision making, you're just pulling off the Republican Party. Because the Democratic Party doesn't touch that shit. There's nobody off the left-hand side of the map that is anywhere interested in any of it. And if you look at all the close call elections that Republicans have had over the last 10 years, where a Republican has lost by 5,000 votes or less, you can track it directly to some nuisance candidate that's a libertarian that is like, Georgia, we had it happen twice in 2020. It's happened in Montana for years before we finally took that state over. There are many, many states where they file these nuisance candidacies. Now, famously, Jill Stein did it to Hillary Clinton in the state of Wisconsin in 2016. Ralph Nader did it to Al Gore in 2000. But it only applies if you're talking about the America Party and what you say you stand for. It only applies to the Republican Party because, like Jill Stein and Ralph Nader, what they're talking about is clinical insanity, like the kind of stuff that if you had an aunt or uncle talking about, you would be like, "Hey, dude, have they taken their medication? Like, can we get them some help?"
They're not talking about balanced budget.
And that's the thing is, like, whenever I see someone talk about like uniparty, it's like, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, no difference. Good point, dude. Genius move.
Totally. I mean, and that's the thing that what drives me crazy. The second truth is that if your goal is to pick up the center of the electorate, which is a thing, right? I mean, there's frustration amongst the American people about how you have a conservative right and a conservative left, or in a liberal left, and it seems like the center, like sensible, just do the shit. Get the roads
you would
paved.
think there's opportunity.
You would think there's opportunity in that. It's been less so with the Donald Trump because he's less ideological, frankly, than most Republican nominees that we've had. But if that's your goal, let me just tell you, if you spent a fucking day in politics, you know that center right and center left, classic swing voters, your soccer, I don't care how the fuck you want to brand it. These are tone people. These are tone people. They care an awful lot about the way you present an argument. And your execution on that is very, very important. Elon Musk is probably the worst tone political figure that I've ever seen. He's
Polling
a
shows
blunt force hammer. And he offends a lot of people because he's a blunt force hammer. So it's incongruent to say that there's this big center of the electorate that you're going to make a play for, and then the party's founder is someone who just consistently offends that group more than any other political figure, including Donald J. Trump, than anyone in the world.
And I mean, the polling bared that out in Wisconsin. When people can't name the candidate who was running for judge in Wisconsin, but they can name Elon. They're like, well, Elon's guy is the one who's running because Elon's pouring money into Wisconsin. How'd that work out? Like all the polling bared out that the voters had a negative opinion of Elon Musk when he tried to make himself the center of that race. I mean, it's a lot more difficult than when you have Donald J. Trump's name on the ballot, isn't it?
100. And if you think for a second the America Party is something, well, it'd be nice to restore common sense again, right? You've got like a reversion to that kind of discussion. Consider that piece of it. What about the common sense? I mean, everything that has made Donald J. Trump's first 6 months in office more controversial than it should be was entirely related to Elon Musk. And I'm not saying it wasn't good or worth doing. The DOGE thing, I continue to be a huge supporter of the DOGE thing. I think that's the best thing that I've seen in a long time. But we all laughed at the beginning of it, suggesting to the American people with a straight face that you can balance their budget based on foreign aid. It's like 0.02% of the frickin' budget. It's a teardrop in the goddamn ocean. And if you do simple math and you listen to people who actually know what the fuck they're talking about, you can discern that very quickly. The problem is that if you live in this online universe that are purveyors of falsehoods, because they want clicks, they want follows, they want likes, they want to monetize all of that stuff, you don't actually know what's going on. You ought to check out and see what's going on. Look what happened to Donald Trump.
Yep.
You put Donald Trump in charge. He's the greatest online marketing machine in the history of American politics. You put him in the Oval Office, look at the decisions that he's making.
And that's the other thing is another reason I think this whole America thing isn't going to work is because you think that there's some hidden sensible group of voters right in the middle of this country who are just who are politically homeless. No, dude. Trump won them all. That's why he got the popular vote on top of the electoral vote.
Literally every swing state. Yeah.
You talk
Like not
about
doing surgery on children. Yeah, those voters are voting for like the sensible people in this country. Criminals who enter illegally, send them back. Yeah, those people are voting for Trump. Like he's captured the center of this country.
You talk about whether or not it's going to work, and I just wonder, what is the ultimate objective? Is the objective to actually build a third party that is an alternative party for Republicans or Democrats across the country? Or is it a sour grapes movement to pull votes out of Trump's pocket and make sure that he's in the minority in Congress after the midterm so that he can be impeached or investigated or something else?
Wow.
Yeah. It feels like Lincoln Project 2.0.
It's the same.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Good
It's
take.
like that
Good
meme.
Take.
Same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
HR wants you to look at the same.
It's the same. It's the same thing. I don't care what
Good
the
take.
motivation is. What you cut to in that take is the result of it.
Damn, yeah, because if Democrats have the House, that's all they're going to do.
That's it.
Forget passing bills like, we got done with the big, beautiful bill. It's going to be just endless investigations.
And like, here's the thing. I mean, look, I don't want to sour grapes it on our end. We reached out, I think, probably to Elon's people 4 or 5 times over the last 6 months to have a conversation about all this because of what you all have listened to for the last several years from the Ruthless Variety program about the math. You can shut down our government until 2036 and still have 4% growth somehow, magically, and you still wouldn't balance the budget. So what are you doing promising people that you're going to do that with cutting trans studies in Tanzania? There's a structural problem here, and until you're interested in dealing with that, you can't balance the budget. So don't promise people that you can. And we reached out over and over and over again to try to have that conversation. They didn't want to have it. He didn't want to have it. Now, I don't know why he didn't want to have it, because honestly, we're pretty congenial people, and more likely than anyone else to be thoughtful about it, because we honestly appreciate Elon and what he's done. Purchase effects, more patriotic maneuvers from a billionaire that I've seen in a long time.
That's right.
This side of Sheldon Adelson, anyway.
Right.
That can actually be a part of a movement for good. And he did all of that, but we wanted to hear him out. They didn't want to have the conversation. So, now we're forced to have this conversation out of what he's brought up, which is bullshit.
And also, tactically, good luck going against Trump.
Good luck. Good luck, dog.
How's that work for anybody?
It hasn't been great.
I think his opponents are batting 0.
Occasionally you get on stage, you look around, you think the crowd's cheering for you, you don't realize you're the warm-up act.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And
That's important to know that.
That's doesn't matter how much money you have, you can't capture the people's heart the way that Donald Trump has, and I think that is ultimately what's surfacing here in many ways. So that brings us to our question of the day. What will happen to the American Party? The American Party could succeed, it could be formed, it could be doing all these things. You heard our take. Your responses. If you like and subscribe to the Ruthless Friday program on YouTube, we read all of your answers. And when you come up with some interesting stuff, we read it the next day. I can't wait.
Yeah, these are going to be good.
I can't wait to hear it. I realize there's a lot of residual appreciation for Elon out there. I get it.
For good reason.
Yeah.
I get it.
He gave people a voice.
But what we just gave you were the facts.
Yep.
So, you tell us. And when we come back, we're going to get to your comments from last episode. It was our 4th of July episode where we asked you to supplement our picks for the most American moment. We loved what you guys had. You liked and subscribed. You gave us a lot of good stuff. We're going to get to it right after this.
What do soaring auto insurance rates and inflation have in common? Greedy billboard trial lawyers and fraud. You're paying more because trial lawyers are bilking the system. They're working with unscrupulous doctors to fake injuries and file fraudulent medical claims. They're conspiring with MS-13 gang members to recruit illegal immigrants for their bogus lawsuits. And while they're getting richer, hardworking Americans are getting crushed by higher auto insurance rates and higher inflation. Frivolous lawsuits are costing the average family over $4,000 a year in hidden taxes. It's a corrupt system. Greedy billboard trial lawyers use fraud and frivolous lawsuits to line their pockets. Then, they give millions to Democratic politicians to defend the racket. Lawsuit abuse and insurance fraud are a tax on you. But President Trump can stop their scam and make America affordable again. Ending lawsuit abuse is one more way to put America first. Paid for by Make America Affordable Again.
Okay, so last episode, our special 4th of July, which is like, it was so nice. I think we should just start doing 3.
We did it
Great
on the
idea.
lead up to the election.
Don't you think?
Felt good.
Felt good.
It did feel good. But also, this one was so rewarding. We asked you the question of how do you add to the 10 things that we lined up about the most American, pro-America moments of recent years and put it together. And you guys came up with absolutely incredible stuff. To do that, we always start with a voice. What do we got?
First one comes from Amanda Warfield, and Amanda writes, I watched your 4th of July episode, and I am in tears. Grateful tears. My dad, now passed, served in the Army Air Corps during World War II in Saipan in the Pacific Theater. I'm 51 years old now, and Reagan was my era's memory. I'm so grateful. When Bush jumped on that pile in New York City, when Trump refused to leave without addressing everyone and saying to fight, they're all moments of greatness. Thank you to all of you.
That's wonderful.
Amanda
Warfield.
just gets it
Yeah.
and gets us.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
love it.
that's what you said is a perfect encapsulation of what we were trying to provide on Friday. That's awesome. Comment 2, Hrunks.
This is from IUCP 101. My greatest moment was seeing our country come together after 9/11. Nobody cared who you voted for, what church you attended, which team you cheered for, or what color you were. We were all Americans. This 4th of July, I'm seeing more flags in my neighborhood than I have since 9/11. The love for our country now is heartwarming.
Yeah.
Love it.
love
It's
it.
beyond politics. It's the country. You can feel it. That's one of the reasons why 4th of July is our favorite holiday.
I mean, I think that was dead on. This 4th felt different. Like, I saw way more flags. People were in a really good mood. I mean, there's a lot of hope in this country right now.
I think it also is related to like the death of woke politics.
Yeah.
Since Trump got reelected.
Yep.
It's like everybody stopped playing that game.
Yep.
Yeah, because there was
put the
a
flag
segment of
back
the
up.
electorate. Now,
Yeah.
granted, I can't relate to that segment, but there was a segment of the electorate that was like, well, if I put a flag out, my
Yeah.
neighbors are going to judge me.
You're going to think I'm a racist.
They're going to think I'm a racist or something, which is, I mean, look, I got no patience for that.
Yep.
But I do think that the elimination, to your point, of the whole woke politics eliminates that. Somebody can be proud of their country again and have to work on them a little bit.
That's why I put that Trump sign in front of my yard. Because if you have a problem with it, that's your mental problem. You got to go. You got to get help for it. It's not on me.
Love it. All right, comment 3, Smuggles.
Comment 3 comes from James Castleberry, and James writes, a key America moment for me was just after the Gulf War. I had spent the Gulf War deployed with the 24th Infantry Division band out of Fort Stewart, Georgia, and one of our biggest fans was General Norman Schwarzkopf. He asked us, Stormin' Norman, that dude got the job done.
Guy
He
had
asked
it.
us to travel down to his retirement ceremony to play, and when we played God Bless the USA, he stood in front of us saluting, tears rolling down his face. It was an amazing moment to be part of and made me extremely proud of our country and what we had accomplished. What a great memory.
That's
That
what I'm
is
talking
awesome.
about,
That's awesome.
James.
That's awesome.
When we asked you, what are we missing? That's it. That was, what a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's great.
And we were talking about this right before we started recording, but like for so long, almost it feels like 15, 20 years, the Democrat Party has cloaked itself in this like, our main belief is going to be that America's a bad country.
Yeah.
Right? How's that worked out for them? People are done with that.
They're done
Thank
with it.
God.
It's about time. And that's why we don't want this situation with the third party,
Yep.
too. It's like, dude, let's get off board for the
we
big
just
win.
got over it. Like Duncan said, we're done with the woke bullshit being like America's a bad country. We're done with it.
Take a W.
Yeah.
Go fight
Yep.
your friends and neighbors. Okay, so we're going to transition from that right into our lightning round. We got a lot of important stuff here. This one, not only are obligated to talk about it, this has been a tough thing for any parents of young children to watch what's happened in Texas with these camps and just the loss of humanity and trying to put yourself in the position that some of these families are in. It's difficult. It's difficult to process. But out of every tragedy in America, there are American heroes because of what it is that we sort of engender to do. You know, I mean, we are people who just try to take care of our friends and neighbors. We have heroes amongst us. Clip 1, please.
When I got on scene, there was 200 kids looking to someone for some sort of comfort and safety. They don't really know what my experience is or my rank or my age. They just know, hey, this guy's a professional and he's here to help us, and I kind of had to live up to that standard. But yeah, the real heroes, I think, were the kids on the ground. Like, those guys are heroic, and they were dealing with some of the worst times of their lives, and they were staying strong, and that helped inspire me to kind of get in there and help them out.
So that was Petty Officer Scott Ruskin, who's credited with saving 165 lives.
It's incredible.
Wow.
I mean,
That's a hero.
Oh, I got to tell you, there's a lot of reasons to be put on Earth. Well, you did it, Scott. I mean,
someone brought up online that there has been a member of the Coast Guard who received the Medal of Honor. I think 165 lives.
Yeah.
That should get you shortlisted. 165
and
lives.
do you hear just how humble?
Totally humble guy. And he apparently left finance to do this.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just it's impressive. Again, what we're seeing down there, totally heartbreaking. Anything you can do, check out with reputable local organizations to make sure that you get stuff going in the right direction. And, ignore all the nonsense that you get off the left about, whose fault things are, and climate change, for God's sakes, or, weather service personnel.
Or that doctor lady who got fired because she was like, looks like in Texas the MAGA people got what they voted for. It's like, you say something like that when there's people who are out there wondering where their kids are,
Yeah.
you're a scumbag.
My wife's family's all from Texas,
Yeah.
and her in particular from Central Texas, the Austin area and stuff. And so she spent this weekend going through the surnames of all these victims, trying to figure out the people that she knew. And think about that. I mean, stuff like this happens and it feels like it's a world away, but it impacts all of us in some way.
Yeah, I mean, we know people. Hollywood Hen knows somebody who lost a young daughter. I mean, it's a heartbreaking thing. It just reminds you how you got to keep it tight, Enjoy things like 4th of July. And honestly reward your heroes. This guy, Scott Ruskin, and there are hundreds of others who are involved in saving people's lives down there. The loss of life is unbelievable and is sort of unimaginable in a lot of ways, but the people who actually were out there giving their life to try to save these kids, it's just incredible.
Well, it's like what Ashbrook said. It's like, his girls went to Pennsylvania for summer camp, and this is every parent's nightmare.
Worst nightmare.
Right? Is like, you just want your kid to be safe at camp.
Totally.
And then you see video of these cabins that are floating on water in the middle of the woods. Right. It's just absolutely a nightmare.
And it's not some fly-by-night operation. I mean, if you actually are concerned about it, you want to look, do the research on what these camps are. They've been around 100 years. These are incredibly values-based operations. These are not some fly-by-night, lacking of preparation. This is a unique situation that was really tragic in a lot of ways. And unfortunately, in the world of social media and the left-wing media, you get a whole bunch of partisan reasons and rationale for tragedy, which is disgusting. It's one thing that I don't think that the left is going to get out from underneath anytime soon. It seems to be like their initial reaction to any human tragedy is to try to figure out a way to blame Trump or blame some ideological reason that they don't agree with. It's sick. It's sick. Have fun nuancing that, America Party. All right, so this other thing we wanted to cover, the Epstein list. I find this hilarious. I'm actually curious, genuinely curious, to hear Smug's thing on this. So, all the conversation that's been online about the Epstein list and all the things that we're getting to with whether he killed himself and where's the definitive list of his clients that he blackmailed and all this other stuff. And you have the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Everybody's convinced that there's a secret cabal of humans that are out there that were all in the Epstein thing, that were like pedophiles and were working on stuff. And very clearly there was a secret cabal of people who are committing atrocious acts, and Ghislaine Maxwell was convicted, and Epstein was on his way to being convicted before he hung himself. But the FBI and the DOJ concluded that there was no client list and that he died by suicide. What's your take here, pal?
I don't buy it I don't buy it. Man, Hillary just keeps getting. She can't keep getting away with it. She cannot keep getting away with it. I want there to be, like, a crew of influencers, right, who get deputized and are given access to the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, right?
I know an influencer who would fit for that.
I mean, so I don't want to see that.
Smug.
I don't want to see that stuff because it's like there's beyond house stuff in your worst nightmares you can't imagine were like a daily occurrence in this cabal's world. So I wouldn't want to see it. I'd never be normal again and fry my brain. But for a lot of influencers, they could probably handle that stuff. You like hand them more binders. Mm-hmm. They're like Epstein influencers who were there that day and got the binders. It's like let them be part of this. They might be more interested in seeing that kind of stuff. But I want a group of influencers put together that are given direct access to all the files and all the information and are also allowed to subpoena Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and
influencers with subpoena power?
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
Yep. Allow them to subpoena Bill Gates. Allow them to subpoena Bill Clinton. Every bill that they need subpoenaed gets subpoenaed. I think that would help get there. Because here's the thing is like, okay, so we heard there were like hundreds of victims that were trafficked, and you're like, oh, there's no client list. So it's just like Epstein and Ghislaine and like 100 children that they're destroying.
So
two things can be true.
Right, two things can be true.
Nope, there's only one truth in this one. It's either right or it's wrong.
I think what the FBI was saying was that there wasn't some sort of like compromise situation going on with Epstein.
He wasn't
with these
blackmailing
right.
as far as they could tell.
Bro, there's a painting of Bill Clinton in a dress.
Right.
And then Bill Clinton's hanging out with this guy. Come on, man.
But here's the thing. The thing I don't understand, because like I believe that Kash Patel and the FBI and these folks have like run it to ground and tried to figure out that component of the thing. Like, was there some sort of influence scheme based on this compromise thing and this extortion racket and all that? And I'm willing to believe that like they couldn't find any of that. But like, seriously, no one else is getting prosecuted?
That's the thing.
Not Prince Andrews. Like, you're telling me all these people just showed up on this island and are like, yeah, we're just hanging out with some girls who just really love us.
And that's the thing is, I think
they think I'm super attractive. Like, you kidding me?
The like week before Trump is inaugurated, I bet the shredders were running on overtime, like the FBI and everything. They were getting rid of all this stuff. Like Bill and Hillary were probably up there with like,
parody,
like
parody,
shovels.
Parody, we're
My
laughing.
We're joking, we're laughing. These are all funny.
I think Hillary's a demon, right? and she was in there getting rid of all of it, dude. I think Obama was probably in there, probably getting rid of some stuff. Like
again, parody. We're
there's
laughing.
a lot of
This
theories about stuff that he's involved in.
Satire.
Jesus, you just
So that's my answer.
Just put a quarter in your back, and here we go. I
want the truth. I want the truth.
Smug, wasn't there someone under the name of John Doe who asked a judge in an official filing to conceal their name from recognition during the process?
I don't know. Was there?
I think there was.
Is this that guy who was in the who says he was in that limo with Obama? Remember that guy?
We'll never.
What was the name
Larry
of that guy?
Sinclair.
John Doe would be Larry Sinclair.
We'll never know. We will never know.
Let the influencers have subpoena power. We'll get this.
I mean, that's the wildest.
Because that's the thing is like so far, Kash and everyone are looking at documents. What they need to be looking at is Hillary in a jail cell, right? Now start asking her questions.
Parody. We're laughing. That is, dude, one of the hottest takes that Smug has ever had.
That's my take.
You got to give influencers
Subpoena power.
Deputize
them.
But didn't
US
we
Marshals.
try that already when they all had the booklets coming out of the White House?
Like, don't just give them binders, give them badges.
All I'm saying is that if Kash Patel tells me something, I believe it.
Yeah.
That's
true.
And I also fall back on the same crew that's all up in arms about this, telling me there's no question that America killed Kennedy, CIA killed Kennedy, and they killed RFK, and they did all this stuff, and we're like running all these like different transactions, and then they're like, okay, well, what's the solution? That we'll release all the files. They released every single page of the files. Crickets.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Haven't heard a word. How many times in the last 6 months have you heard of anybody being like, yeah, CIA killed Kennedy?
Right.
I've heard a lot of murmurs about that.
Dude, I mean, You were hilarious with Pompeo with that. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it goes to the same point.
Right.
Is it like
Yeah,
when
when
you
the
don't
dog when the dog catches the mail truck, then suddenly they don't know what to do.
when you don't know shit from Shinola other than how to formulate an argument that inflames the masses, when you get the argument back to you on your doorstep and it's nothing but a bunch of pages about like interviews that they've done with everybody over the world, and they're like, I guess there isn't any conspiracy. Nobody comes back to you to say,
Right.
hey, maybe we were wrong about that.
Right. There is a place for conspiracy theories, and what we've found over the last several years is many of the conspiracy theories we've talked about have turned out to be true. But there's also a reason why the vast majority of normies who go to work in Washington walk away with the conclusion that the government is more likely disorganized than building a grand conspiracy to cover something.
I'm with that 100%. I will stick by my guns here. That I think it's crazy that only 2 people went to jail for this.
Oh no, I think you're right. I think
You know?
I think that is absolutely right. It's hard to believe that there was some just like woman who
Yeah.
is like a pseudo girlfriend who somehow trafficked 100 people, where there was people going on planes down to a private island, and that there was nobody else who committed any crimes
Yeah.
here. That seems unlikely
Yeah.
to me. Whether you can prove said crimes or not, I think is what the business of the FBI is.
Yeah, and like, look, I have absolute faith in Kash Patel, like running everything to ground. I mean, like this guy made his career during the Russiagate stuff when the left and the deep state and Adam Schiff and all these people were making all these wild accusations about Donald Trump. He made his bones by actually like looking at the evidence, and tracing all the sourcing. And figured it all out himself. He actually like went and he did the thing that nobody was going to do. He was like the Michael Burry of Russiagate.
Right.
Like actually looked and saw what the evidence was. And so like that guy's running the FBI. I feel pretty confident that if he could put more people in jail, he would do it.
I totally agree. Another quick story here. Protests against surging what they call mass tourism.
Yes, I love this. Yes, I love this story.
Mass tourism in Mexico City ended vandalism, harassment of tourists. Maybe we can just play the clip first and clip 2. All right, so this is for our audio-only audience. What you're watching here is full-on destruction of property. It looks a little bit like L.A. And what's happening?
This dude is spray painting "Kill a Gringo." So they're like basically saying like they don't want gringos in Mexico and they should go back.
That's racist, right?
It's funny though because it's like if there was a right-wing version of SNL depicting like the upside down world, this would be a skit on that show. Right? Where like these Mexicans in Mexico City are like kill a gringo and they're like breaking down these businesses because they're gentrifying Mexico City. Huh, weird.
I was reading a lot of articles about this and they were saying that like a center like point of this like essentially it's now just a mob. They were like, there are all these tourists overstaying their visas.
Americans.
All these Americans overstaying their visas in Mexico. And they need to go back.
They need to go back. And they're like, you have to learn Spanish. You have to integrate with our society.
Dude, it's hilarious.
And meanwhile, you got people in L.A. like waving Mexican flags, being like, we live here. This is our country too.
Let me ask you guys, what qualifies as a gringo? If Smug, for example, were to move to Mexico City and buy property and then rent it out to people at a fair rate, would they call Smug a gringo?
It's a good question.
No, I don't think
if
so.
If it was profitable, I'll go by Senor Smug. Senor Smug.
Avoid the protesters.
Yeah, maybe grow out a mustache.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's a dollar to be made, dude. There's a peso to be made.
There's a peso to be made. But you're right. I don't think they go gringo on you.
They might not.
It'd be like that Mamdani guy who's trying to say that. Like, well, when he was applying to college, you got heard about this, right?
Yeah.
He was telling him he's African American.
Yeah. And he's like, well, that's how I identified because it's like, not a white guy.
Because he was born in Uganda.
Yeah.
It'd be like Elon Musk being like, I'm African American. I'm from South Africa. What do you mean?
It's so good. I love that you just kill the gringo and everybody's like, oh man, these aggrieved Mexicans.
Yeah.
And then they come here and they're waving Mexican flags and they're like, no, kill Whitey.
Yeah.
And it's like same. It's all good. Like they have a point. Okay. So listen, the other thing that we had to point out, I don't know if you guys saw this Hakeem Jeffries situation. All right, so this is in graphic 6. What you're going to see is Hakeem Jeffries photoshopping his image to make himself appear slimmer.
My God.
So this has been all over conservative Twitter over the last day.
Oh, you can see the shadows bend.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
It's the bench behind him is bending towards him, and what that would indicate is he's using like Facetune or one of these third-party apps that integrates with Instagram. So you post the photo and you're like, "Oh, my hips look a little fat."
Wait a minute.
Look
Are you kidding me?
No, dude, look at that.
He did it
my
to make
thighs-
his hips look smaller?
My thighs look a little thick.
Yeah.
So he's going ahead and he's just pinching it in there.
Get out of here.
No, that's what's happening.
And what you're seeing is the warping of the bench behind him reveals that he did that.
hilarious.
I mean, at least I have no confirmation of this. I'm sure his office hasn't put out a statement about how he's worried about having too thick of thighs, but the evidence in front of me would suggest that he's using Facetune or some other
Dude, it's
app.
literally like Orwell, where it's like all the communist pigs at the top just get fatter and fatter.
Just embrace your thick thighs.
Hakeem. I mean, first of all, putting up a pic like that on Instagram, he's just leaning against a park bench trying to look hard.
Yeah.
mean,
Weird.
that-
Weird in a
By himself.
Yeah.
What even is the point? I will tell you guys, Courtney Holland, good friend of the program from Nevada, said that you should do yourself a favor and look at the comments underneath his Instagram post where he posted that, and you will have 1 million laughs.
Okay. All right.
Everybody's dunking on him.
Well, it's hilarious to me that somebody would put it. I mean, it goes to show the thing that we've talked about an awful lot, where it's like members of Congress, particularly on the Democratic side, have decided that when you're elected and you have any prominence at all, it's like a fame deal,
Yeah.
rather than there to do a job.
Yep.
Just waiting
That's
for
right.
That's it.
your Vogue
Right.
cover shoot.
That's right. He's in People magazine.
Yeah, he's trying to like replicate the star People magazine, Vanity Fair, or whatever. Like he's posing against the like what?
Pathetic.
First, what's he doing, dude?
Right.
Pathetic.
No, it's insanity.
All right, another story. This comes from Fast Company. Zoomers discover vacation. They brand it micro-retirement.
You have to read from this article because the way that they frame it up is hilarious.
Okay, so the excerpt is, the thought of one day retiring and no longer having to punch a clock, answering required emails, work long hours, and the other responsibilities of employment is a dream that can get you through the hard moments of work. While retirement typically occurs after completing a career and saving and investing for it, a new trend is emerging among Gen Z career professionals called micro-retirement. Micro-retirements involve taking a 1 to 2 week break from every work of 12 to 18 months. Gen Z is using micro-retirement to avoid burnout, find greater fulfillment in their work, enhance their overall well-being. Okay.
I love it.
I do have a question on this, but I can wait and get to that after I hear everybody's take.
Well, okay, so let me just start off the top rope and just put the people's elbow into the Zoomers. Zoomers, you got to stop talking about life like therapy.
Yes.
It's really uncomfortable. It makes us all very uncomfortable because for most of us, work is work and we do it because we need to do it to live. Not everything is a journey. Not everything is you putting agency onto the world. Some things are just your duty and responsibilities as an adult. And I know that's hard for you to come to terms with because our entire society has treated you like permanent children, but that's not life. That's not life. And they feel like in order to have agency throughout their working life, they have to invent new terms, mental health break, micro retirement, in order to just live in the same life that we've all lived. It's hard.
Yeah.
I get it.
I have a different take.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead and baby them real quick?
I'm not. So
That'll be helpful for their development.
I don't believe this is real. I don't believe it's real at all. I think Fast Company, you know, there's a publication that they're like, what kind of slop are we going to throw out today? And some guy's like, oh, I heard a Zoomer say the word micro-retirement. Now I'm going to write an article about it and try to SEO it and try to get some clicks because I work at a slop factory. Like BuzzFeed walked so these slop factories can run, right? No one's calling it.
This take,
no one's calling it a micro factory. This is just another slop factory SEO manufactured BS. No one's going to talk about it in 2 weeks. I think actually Zoomers, yeah, they've been coddled a bit, but they've also had it pretty damn bad. You know, like when you're at like either in high school or I guess they were like in college, and then like the whole world's been shut down for them. Like, think about what they did to kids in this country during COVID.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It was horrible.
Yeah.
So, like, and now these people had to enter a job market where the president is an actual zombie, and then they have Kamala Harris run and tell them that she's like a small, like, they had it pretty bad. Those are some bad years, you know? So I doubt any of them believe in this micro-retirement. I think they're all just like, to a certain extent, I think a lot of Zoomers are getting beat up when
But do you disagree with me that they talk about life like therapy?
I think the left
because
wing,
they do.
I think the left wing messaging has been to be like toxic masculinity. Everything is therapy. Everything is a journey. Like, here's my grocery journey of how I went and got carrots. You know what I mean? Like, yes. But I think that's been a very left wing message thing. I think that's been part of the like wokeness.
But it's been pervasive in their
totally.
in their
and I think that's
cohort,
all getting scrubbed away.
Hopefully.
So I agree with everything that's been said here. I simply have a question, and this is more for Michael Duncan than the other guys, but feel free to chime in. You know, a lot of Zoomers are looking at the economy and looking at the boomer generation that's fully retired and thinking, well, somebody has to load the money into Social Security so the boomers can continue their retirement and enjoying their lives in Florida or Arizona or wherever. So I'm just wondering if you think that these Zoomers are concerned that there's a chance they won't be playing golf every day at 65 years old like the boomer generation has.
I guess that's probably.
He's trying to light your boomer fire, dude. I see what's
Well,
happening.
Boomers are the greatest generation. I reject this notion to try to set everyone against
Yeah,
boomer
here
versus
goes
the
Michael.
boomers built the greatness of this country with their own two hands, right? They had to go through. Look at all the wars and the depressions
Hold
that
on.
we've gone through in this country that the boomers have survived and
Wait,
pulled this
but
country
for
to
our
greatness.
for our viewing
Everything that
audience-
they have earned.
For our viewing audience,
Like these attacks on the boomers, I reject them.
who is less familiar with the Ruthless Friday program, what you've seen is a perfect storm of two individuals trying to ignite a fire under Mr. Duncan, the old man.
Yeah.
And I think they've done so to great effect in a way that I'd like to just hand you
The boomers are the
floor.
greatest generation, and they'll never get their dues.
All right, so second thing first here. Smug talked about how the boomers survived the depressions and stuff. Well, by the very nature of the age cohort, they were after World War II, so that is factually inaccurate.
I'm talking about like, you know, 08, and then you also saw 80, and then you saw in 2000. There's been at least 3 stock market crashes that they've had to endure.
Yeah, but 2000
the savings and loan scandal, the subprime mortgage scandal, the .com bubble, and then COVID. Dude, and still boomers
really
rise. Still
worked
boomers
hard at
rise. Boomers are heroes.
I have nothing against the baby
They are
boomers.
heroes.
I guess what I would just say.
Thank a boomer. Everyone out there, go
Okay,
thank a
he's
boomer.
just gonna filibuster the thing.
Thank a boomer!
Yeah.
He's done his best to put the bee sting all the way into your ass.
All I would say is I, as hard as I give it to Gen Alpha and the Zoomers about growing up and being an adults, I hope the Boomers likewise can have a little bit of perspective from their own lives that they lived in an America that had the most uninterrupted growth in like any democracy's history after World War II. And that they live fundamentally in a different country than younger people have to deal with now as far as the competition and technology and all of these sorts of things that make it harder to build wealth and all of that sort of stuff. And you look at the cost of living in this country and the cost of owning a home, like it is by magnitudes greater than the average salary that people are earning today relative to when they were buying homes in the 70s and 80s. So just approach these younger people with grace in that department. But I think there's a limit to it, right? And that here in the United States of America, maybe it's different in the rest of the world, but we expect our adults to be adults and to go out there and earn a paycheck. And I feel for, like you said, Smug, like, you know, COVID and what it did to these kids. Well, shit, when I was in high school, fucking planes were flown into the Twin Towers, then we invaded 2 countries. When I went to college, I graduated in the Great Recession.
No,
you know, I mean, like every generation has had its struggle.
Michael, you make a great point. What these kids need to learn from their parents and grandparents is that you can walk into a bank and give somebody a handshake and get a mortgage for a house.
That's not how it works.
That's exactly how it always
not
worked.
how it works.
But
my
this generation
word
doesn't
is
understand.
my bond.
Yeah.
Stronger than oak. Pillar of the community. Listen, I feel like I'm with an awful lot of these arguments. I do think there's an element, though, of the boomer aging process that has gotten us to a point where the disconnect with this generation, with the Gen Z, or, you know, even as far back as like a Gen X all the way to millennials or whatever, is pretty magnificent. Where there's like they bought a home for like $1.25, or like, you know, traded an Indian head penny for 16 acres of land in like prime beachside location, and they're like, why can't these people figure out how to deal with stuff?
Oh, that's made up, dude. Boomers had to earn every bit of it.
I mean, it's just, I just think that there is an element of that is very true, and it has that angst. It creates that angst. And that angst would be solved by what it is that you're saying in a lot of ways,
but
which is like act like an adult rather than give me a therapy
So that's
session.
the problem. The problem is, like, the criticisms of the boomers, I think, are accurate, but it shouldn't also be used as an excuse to be a piece of shit loser.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Totally right.
Like, that's the thing, is like, I don't want to buy into this grievance level left-wing politics of how, like, the boomers had it easier, therefore we're allowed to be terrible.
Yeah.
That's seductive, and I get it. Don't ever buy into that, because that is not America. Likewise, boomers acknowledge you had it easier. I'm sorry, you had it easier.
Yeah.
You had it easier. But it's not an excuse for Gen Alpha and these Zoomers to go through life like it's a therapy session and nothing's their fault.
Yeah. I think
it's just everyone sees the boomers with what they have earned over a lifetime of work. You don't see all those little mini moments of sacrifice and hard work.
I like
what you don't see that part.
What you do see is that boomers made it to the moon. We haven't been back since. Right, Smug?
That's the
boomers
thing.
went to the moon.
They've done so much for this country.
I can't believe it.
And they got
He
so
just totally tuck-tailed and ran on you. No, it's amazing. It's genuinely incredible. This is a full gang up. I'm with you, Michael.
I'm right, and I apologize for nothing.
Listen. I think you are right. I think people need to figure it out. Pull the fucking oar, man. Like, that's the whole thing, the whole thesis of what we were talking about with the 4th of July special. And I think a deep thematic of our show in general. I don't care what generation you are. Like, have some respect for the country, for what it is, and know that you have a place in trying to make it better. And, like, I don't care about your goddamn micro. I don't care whatever it is that you want to brand it. 2 weeks, yeah, it's pretty much in everybody's paycheck, right? When you sign a contract with something, they're going to give you 2 weeks a year, or like 10 days a year or something like that. Seems in line with that. So you can call it whatever it is that you want, but I don't want you to hear about it. Just do what everybody else does. Pick up your oar and row the boat.
And thank a boomer while you're at it.
Thank a boomer is the funniest thing.
Thank a boomer. There might be new merch coming for boomers everywhere. That is a Smug replica.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yep.
Thank a boomer.
Thank a boomer merch.
I'm not sewing that shit.
Oh yeah, that's right. You have to sew it. You don't
so
care
good.
about the program?
It's
I
so
love the
good.
boomers.
Listen, we got to get to Dawsey here. This is a Wall Street Journal reporter. He's done an awful lot of time in Washington, D.C., and he's been at the Trump beat since day one. Nobody understands this stuff better than he does. He's got a lot of great stories. He's got a new book out. Listen to this. Well, every once in a while here on the Ruthless Variety program, we like to host a controversial figure. Someone who there are many opinions about. And, I mean, we like to hear people out, especially when they've done sort of big things. But he's a big deal. And what he is now is a Wall Street Journal reporter. Josh Dawsey, how are you, sir?
I didn't realize I was that controversial, but I'll take your word for it. Should we unspool that a little, or what?
Well, I would say, from my end, BLT steak closing here in D.C. was sad for many reasons, but it was sad for me personally because one of my favorite activities was to walk in there at happy hour, run into you, and start an argument.
Bust balls.
I think that was my twin. I don't have no recollection.
Those were different Josh Dawseys. Well, he's here. Listen, he is one of the preeminent political reporters in all of the game. He's been around for a while. He's covered the Trump administration from soup to nuts, continues to do so, but he's also written a book. You're like look at what's happened. That's what you do. When you graduate through the ranks and you become a big deal, like you got to put pen to paper in the form of a book. You wrote 2024, How Trump Retook the White House and Democrats Lost America. I like the title. I feel good about it. That is what happened. So far, so good.
So you cannot argue with that title, can you? I think that is inarguable.
So tell me, look, we've been friends for a number of years and have talked about a whole range of different things, and I know you cover everything very, very closely. And you've thought people have tried to get you to write books before, many occasions. Yeah. And you always thought, it's like not the right time for that. It's not what I'm doing. This is a different time. Well, what about this particular campaign and what you think about, sort of how it shaped, how it ended, and what it means going forward that made this the right time to write this book?
Well, to me, it sort of felt like a singular moment in the story. I came to Washington in 2016 and had been covering Trump mostly on, but off and on for almost a decade. And this election, either he was going to come back triumphantly and, beat all of the criminal charges in the various states and cases against him, beat all of his opponents in the party who wanted to run against him, and have, one of the most amazing arcs kind of storyline of all time, or it was going to be an ignominious end for him. If he loses the election, one of the things, he told me in an interview for the book was, I kind of kept thinking about the rest of my life is going to be very unpleasant if I lose this election, right?
It really was. It chips all in.
So it was a chips all in moment. And so when we started writing this book, it was a Trump versus Biden story, right, in 2023. And I thought a rematch of the previous election. We've never seen a story like that in American history. And, the moment felt so different from 2020 that I thought it would, one way or the other, it seemed to me like a great story that would be worth unspooling a little past the daily sort of newspaper deadline pressures, right? Try to actually figure out what happened. And then the story became obviously way more interesting in almost every way than even I expected.
Yeah, because you're a guy who has good relationships that, in your day-to-day job, you hear all kinds of things that you can't just sort of fit into the daily newspaper, but they make for great stories. You just don't have a outlet for it. And this was a decision early on about, all right, I'm going to start gathering string on this thing. And it's Trump, right? You'd known you'd covered the Trump White House from the very beginning. You knew you were going to get some great stuff. The color that comes along with Donald J. Trump is unlike anything we've seen in political history. So it's going to be entertaining no matter what. So you're like, all right, here we go.
Well, when I talked to him in January for the book, I said to him, I said, he told me, he was like, are you ready to get back to it? Because I was like, we're talking about him going back to Washington in a week. And I was like, you make a lot of news, sir. And he goes, that I do. And I think there was an awareness that the show was returning, so to speak. And I think he was ready for it. You're right. Trump brings out, and I think a lot of the book is colorful scenes about Trump and some of his top advisors around him and sort of how a historic campaign by all accounts worked and didn't work, what went well, what didn't go well. But actually a lot of the more interesting material in some ways in the book turned out to be on the Democratic side.
Yeah.
When we first started writing the book, I think it would be fair to say we all saw Trump as a main character in the book. We thought it would be a Trump book, Biden, Kamala Harris, others would be sort of supporting players, but Trump was the show. But really, because of all of the things that happened in 2024, things that we never imagined happening, the debate performance, Hunter Biden's trial, switching the nominee, just the way the campaign played out, some of them, I think, more maybe surprising material in the book is actually things that played out on the Democrats side.
Well, so can I start there? There's been a lot of speculation about President Obama's role in not only Biden moving off of the ticket, but Kamala Harris moving on. And I wonder if there's any stories or color that you picked up that's new to that conversation.
Well, the two of them have an extraordinarily complicated relationship, right? I mean, I think there's a personal fondness there. He was President Obama's vice president for 8 years. I think they had some warmth. But I think in private, Obama was always skeptical of Biden's oratory skills, his chops as a politician. If you remember back, he did not want Biden to run. Again, in 2020, he was skeptical of Biden running. And Obama made pretty clear going into this election, he thought the Democratic Party should maybe consider someone else privately, right?
Which I'm sure Biden loved that.
Biden did not love that. The Biden sort of psyche that we kind of learned in this book, people for years had sort of told Biden he was not a national figure. He was a senator. He was not presidential material. And he'd always wanted to be president. I mean, he had been saying for 50 years he wanted to be president, if not longer, right? And was told by all these people, including Obama, maybe you're not up for it. And so in the book, what you see Obama is watching this, and Obama tells all of Biden's senior staff, your campaign's a mess. You guys have a real problem. So you got to get it together. Because what was happening in early 2023 and late 2023 even, but I don't think I understood the depths of this. There was lots of polling that Democrats did not want Joe Biden. Largely, they thought he was too old. You saw that across the country. Right. You saw the DNC, no matter what, force him through. You saw the apparatus force him through. They were very determined to have Biden, even as the voters said, no, thank you. But what we learned in the book was how they saw the signs behind the scenes, right? One of the things we have in the book is digital engagement for Democrats went way down. Small dollar fundraising for Biden went way down. People who wanted to volunteer went way down. I mean, there were all these lagging signs of support, and Obama and others saw that, but there was very little they can do. I mean, you can't publicly. They were sort of locked in with the guy until he changed his mind.
Yeah.
So the psychology of that on Biden's side. He has all these people telling him, we don't think you have the chops. We don't think you're that great of a campaigner or orator or all those sorts of things. He's obviously sort of passed over for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So he's got this chip on his shoulder, right? And then 2020, all the stars align. And you end up in an election with a sitting president and the worst pandemic in U.S. history. And you somehow become president, and he feels like he proved them all wrong, right?
Right.
Do you think that psychology of finally proving all the critics wrong
It's what kept
him in. Is it that ultimately victory is what defeated him? That was the hubris and the tragedy that is Joe Biden.
100%. I mean, I think what he saw proving everyone wrong, he thought he could do it again, right? And one of the elements of a book that I'm sort of think is really interesting is the way that his top advisors, particularly Mike Donnelly and Steve Ricchetti, kept information from him. I mean, there was a concerted effort I'll give you an example. His pollsters after the horrible debate, repeatedly wanted to meet with him. Just to lay out, here's what we're seeing, here's what the numbers show, here's what's going on. They asked for a meeting after weeks and weeks and weeks. Meetings at 2 o'clock, gets pushed back to 4, 7, 8, canceled. His pollsters never met with him.
No.
Never got FaceTime with him.
You're kidding
They
me.
put all the polls to Donnelly and Ricchetti, who saw what he wanted. It got so desperate near the end that campaign staff wanted to quit because donors were not giving, during that period before Kamala Harris becomes a nominee, that and they can't get to Biden to talk to him. So Adrian Elrod, who's a prominent Democratic operative, calls Joe Scarborough and gives him the briefing that she wants to give to Biden, hoping that Scarborough will do it on his show. So then Scarborough does it the next morning on the show. So they finally got some of the information they want to get to Biden.
Because he was watching
through
Scarborough.
Morning Joe while he was on the treadmill. We have a scene in the book where Pete Aguilar, a congressman, is telling Ricchetti, you guys are going to bring down the House. You guys are going to bring down the Senate. I mean, his numbers are awful in all these states. And Ricchetti says, I don't think that's so. And Pete Aguilar says, every member of Congress that I have in a swing district is incredibly worried about what an albatross you are. Ricchetti said, well, that's not what we're hearing, right? Schumer repeatedly went to top folks in the White House and said, you guys have got to tell the president what we're saying, what senators are saying.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't do it.
So that then when Kamala comes on the screen, on the scene, did Democrats think that she was going to solve those problems, honestly, or did they think she's the best we can get at the time?
They thought that she gave them a chance. I mean,
They'd already braced themselves.
They had basically, by the end of July, after the Republican convention, the assassination attempt on Trump, a lot of Democrats had given up. And they thought if Biden was the nominee and he didn't drop out, this thing was over.
It's cooked.
And they thought at least Kamala Harris gave him a fighting chance.
Something different.
Right? And what you saw in those early sort of halcyon days of her campaign, her numbers went up big time, right? Her favorables went up. I mean, Tony Fabrizio, Trump's pollster, said it was the biggest shift he'd ever seen on a candidate in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And
that was received well in Trump HQ, I imagine.
was not received well in Trump HQ. But Fabrizio told others, we have this in the book, this is a sugar high. Her numbers are going to come back down to earth. We've just got to sort of wait this out, put ads out there, spend some money. We can still define her. But what really happened in that moment, I think the Democratic base was so depressed at losing and Biden and whatever that a lot of their voters who should have been Democrats anyway sort of came home.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that she was winning. Anyone knew that she needed.
She's just making up the deficit.
She was sort of
that Biden
making
had.
up how sharp the deficit was, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't think one of the things that we sort of write about a lot in the book was her goal, and it obviously didn't work, to try and convince independent voters and sort of folks, never Trump Republicans, so to speak, to come to her. And we obtained all of these memos that the campaign hired a sort of Republican consultant, Maria Kamala. She was Chris Christie's longtime person, sort of known in Republican circles, to try and put together a plan on here's how you get Republicans to come vote for you, right? And she basically tells them, you guys have to do everything differently, right? I mean, we have the memos where she says, on the trans issue, you have to answer that question differently. You have to create some distance from Biden on a lot of these things because Biden's numbers are just so bad,
That one
right?
didn't take.
You can't keep.
Is that before or after the View
You
interview?
can't keep. I know, right? You can't keep appearing with Liz Cheney. Liz Cheney's not who's going to get you these voters.
Yeah.
Right.
These memos are pretty stark. I mean, she says at one point, "Do you really want the last speech to be on the lips? Like we do not. The J6 is not the message of his campaign."
Yeah, right.
And they were all sort of not adhered to, right? Because that was not their theory of the case.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they created a theory pretty early on, including trying to promote Donald Trump as his opponent early on in Biden HQ. But at some point, this thing starts to turn. There's a consolidation within the Republican electorate for Trump that they probably didn't anticipate. And then this thing just starts sliding sideways. And there's been a lot of talk with the Tapper book and all of this about, who knew what when. And knowing that you covered the Republican side of the House, not the Biden White House, I'm curious from your perspective, just in knowing journalism, like how much is it a culpability issue with people just not seeing what they're seeing in front of them? Was there, in your opinion, is there a concerted effort? Is it an access issue? Like what happened here? Because what happened on stage, to those of us who spend our lives watching very closely what happens in politics, was not a surprise to anyone in that debate. I mean, this was what we expected and anticipated in some way.
You expected him to be that bad.
Well, you watch him for 2-3 years not being able to complete a sentence and wandering off stage and calling out dead people in the audience. I mean, this is not something that are just simple mistakes because you're on camera every day. It's stuff that was pretty obvious to anybody who wanted to pay attention.
I think the mistake that Democrats made, and I think they sort of deluded themselves, is Biden had a stronger than anticipated State of the Union.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Gave them a false sense of security.
False sense of security, but that was never Joe Biden's problem. He could always read the teleprompter. The problem was when he had to talk extemporaneously.
Yeah.
And we saw it there on the debate stage.
One of the things we have in the book is how badly his debate prep went. So they
Yeah.
go out to Camp David. They spend a week out there, right? And the short sessions, he's not doing great in some of the sessions. these people watching. At one point, they bring in Steven Spielberg to try to coach him on his voice.
Which is such a perfect Democrat thing to do, isn't it?
They have all sorts of people in his ear.
And now Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Right.
They are trying.
Coach him
they're
on
trying
his
a lot
looks,
of things.
Brad.
You know, Jeffrey Katzenberg's involved. They're trying.
Yeah. Oh no.
They're trying lots.
We laughed and we laughed.
Lots and lots and lots
Can
of
we
things,
do this
right?
debate in Pixar?
Yeah.
And at the end of like days and days and days of this, Ron Klain, who was running debate negotiations, turns to the rest of the group and says, "This is going to be touch and go," right? Because I think they realized like this could go poorly.
More go than touch.
You know what's interesting though? What's really one of the things that I think is sort of I don't know, just was surprising to me, right? The Trump folks that night were sort of pre-spinning the debate, and they thought that Biden would do okay. Not great, but okay. And what their fear was that Biden would do
Well
5
enough.
out of 10, 6 out of 10, and that they thought the media would then sort of chart that up to a win, right?
Because expectations were so low.
Right. TV have all these talking points, right, for surrogates and whatever. And then they're watching the debate. They're at a volleyball coliseum at Georgia Tech University. They're all watching the debate. At first, they think the sound is off because they can't hear him.
Yeah.
And so they scream out, "Can someone turn the sound on? Can you turn the sound on?"
just not
And they're like, no, the sound's on. Like, nothing's wrong with the TV, right?
That's great color.
So they go and they have to write new talking points for the surrogates because their talking points were not, this is going to
It
be
was like
so
all
bad,
the-
he can't be coherent. They literally write entirely new talking points. They bring printers in, and what they tell the surrogates in the room is they're like, look, and at this point it's Rubio, it's J.D. Vance, it's all of these senators, whatever. They say, whatever you do, when you go out there, you have to say, Biden is still their nominee. They've got to stick with Biden, right? Biden is a nominee. Under no circumstances can they switch a nominee.
What an amazing moment.
So when they're like watching this and processing it, they're like, okay, this is really good for us, but also, like, is this going to lead them to switch a nominee?
Yeah.
They were afraid right away.
Right.
It's
They
like
were
that
afraid
Bronx
right
tale. Like, now yous can't leave.
Yeah, they really wanted him not to leave, but he ultimately does. And again, the whole Kamala rise and all of this, you get into the fall. How much, look, you followed President Trump right from day one. There was a thought from many of us who interacted with the campaign, but also interacted with the first 4 years, that there was a level of discipline there and execution. Certainly in the early days, maybe a brief hiccup in the midsummer doldrums, but the execution down the stretch, the message discipline was incredible. And it seemed like Trump just had a different, I don't know if it was a different energy, but it seemed much more fun. Like, how do you attribute that in your reporting?
He did have a different energy. I think he saw this as sort of his election as an existential moment in his life. I also think he had more trust of the people around him. I think in 2020, Brad Parscale, Bill Stepien, who were his campaign managers, I'm not saying anything negative about these guys, but I don't think they had the relationship with Trump that Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita had with him. I just don't think they did. And I think Susie in particular was sort of a calming presence for Trump, right? And, what they would often have to do down the stretch, they believe their theory of the case, and they were saying this to me and others at the time, if this is an election about the economy, we win overwhelmingly. When we're talking about other things, it's harder for us if we make this about the economy. So they would try to get Trump every event to talk about the economy. And there's a scene in the book. He's at Bedminster. He's at his golf club, and they're doing this. They have this like array of like groceries out on the table, like steak and Cheerios and whatever, because they want to do this cost of living and inflation presser. And he's just in an awful mood like that. And he's been in like an awful mood for weeks because Kamala Harris is a new nominee. He's frankly just pissed off about it. And we have a whole chapter sort of in this in the book. And they're backstage with him, and they're like, we want you to read this speech about the economy. Like, we've put all these groceries out there. He's like, this is boring. I don't want to read this. I don't want to read this. They're like, no, like, can you read this? And so they basically compromise with him. They say, read this and then talk about whatever you want to talk about, just as long as you read a little bit of this first, right? Yeah. And then he goes out and takes questions and does kind of whatever he wants. But he does read part of it, right? And down the stretch, Trump, by all accounts, was a little jittery. He was, seeing some of the public polling. He was sort of hearing from friends, I don't see ads in my state. X,
Every
Y,
candidate
Z,
in history, by the way.
Right?
Yeah.
And Fabrizio and Susie and Chris were, pretty confident. I mean, I remember conversations with his senior folks 2-3 weeks out, and they were like, I'm curious if I should say this on air, but I'm going to.
Please.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever your deepest, darkest secret.
They didn't understand what Kamala Harris's campaign was doing. In their mind, they were winning. The numbers were moving in their favor, and what her message was did not make sense to them.
She was doubling down.
And I remember being on the phone with a couple of Trump folks in October, and they said to me, like, what are they seeing that we're not seeing? Like, what is their theory of the case? Can you just articulate to us? Yeah. Like, we really want to sort of understand, like, is there like a big flag here? And I sort of didn't get into it with them, but I remember thinking, like, they're either really right about this or they're really wrong. Yeah. And at the time, I don't think we knew, but obviously their numbers were right.
We did, in the end. Well, it's a terrific book, and you cover, like you said, both sides, both campaigns, a lot of under-the-hood stuff that nobody's ever reported and heard from. A big journey for you, pal. A big journey. A big journey all the way from graphic one, please, if we wouldn't mind, Spaghetti, if we can get that thing up.
There he is. Spelling bee.
There's the Scripps National Spelling Bee competitor, Josh Dawsey, in 2004, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct. Yes.
2004?
I went out early, but that is me attempting
Not
to
that
spell.
early, though.
I made it to the Nationals, but...
Not that early.
Guy makes it to Nationals. He's like, I went out early.
Well,
but there's a whole thing here, guys. The spelling bee culture. I mean, it's like the most serious, competitive thing in your life, right? And you get there and you realize, like, I don't have a chance. I mean, these people are way more prepared than I am.
So I've told you this story, but for the benefit of our audience, we used to, Ashbrook and I, along with like 15 other people, used to put down like an annual event that we called Bet the Bee.
I remember this. You told me about this.
Where the whole thing was you draft 5 spellers, 4 that you think can win the competition. And there was metrics. Like we had done this for years, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, where we could kind of tell who was going to be a contender. The best indicator was if they had a sibling.
It's like betting on horses, but for spelling
It's 100% like betting on horses. So if there was a good lineage there, like a brother or sister who competed.
You know why? Because that meant the parents were driving.
Exactly.
You're not without data in making these selections. As you know, every single local newspaper sponsors the best speller in the area, and so they always do a story.
Well, right up.
And how the speller responds to the reporter's questions is a great indicator of how seriously they're taking their job to win. Right. If they're talking about my mom is on me to spell every day, it's the only thing I'm thinking about, that is a very high pick. If they're like, you know what, I love the Seahawks and I can't wait to see how they do this season, you're like, lower.
Yeah, no, you don't want that.
You don't want
and like basically, just not to get too specific, but if it's an Indian homeschooled kid with a brother or sister who had competed in the National Bee before, that's going to be a top 5 pick.
You get away.
It's just going to be what it is. And so, but then one of these selections needs to be a loser. And you're docked points for every round that they advance. And in 2004, I saw this young gentleman from South Carolina who had all the hallmarks of somebody who couldn't spell a lick.
That was me.
No joke.
So I drafted you, and I was sad to say that you cost me dearly because you did figure out how to spell some things right, and I didn't win the championship because of you.
That's the best news I've heard today. I cost you your spelling bee pool.
You did.
If I accomplished nothing else today, I have done something with my life.
You did.
Is that why you called me controversial at the top of the show?
Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah. It's controversial to me. I could have won. I could have had the 04 championship.
I just love that Holmes.
You should have not bet on me.
I love that Holmes is basically the Mel Kiper of handicapping the spelling bee.
I will say,
we got good at it.
It's one of the most degenerate things I've ever heard.
I love South Carolina. I grew up there. I went to college there. It is a wonderful, beautiful state. So do not take this as an insult to anyone from South Carolina who's listening. I'm not sure it was the most competitive state for the national
For
spelling.
spelling bee. Well, no. I mean, we look at these things. Every once in a while, I get thrown off as a homeschool kid in Kansas. And you're like, I didn't see that coming. Right? But South Carolina, I felt real confident. Like, I don't remember where you went to high school, but I remember thinking at the time it was like on either public school or something like that. And I was like, this doesn't. Like, you got to be real homeschool if you're in South Carolina.
I was homeschooled, yes.
Yeah, so. Listen, you got a good sense of humor, buddy.
I'm happy to take that.
You got a good sense of humor. You do incredible work. We don't always agree on everything, obviously, but your job is to sort of like get under the hood, and you've got good relationships. I mean, some of the people that we know and like in this business think the world of you, and so I can imagine this book is going to be a big hit because you got a lot of open sesame, a lot of open kimono with folks.
We'll see if they still like me afterwards.
Yeah, no, well, that's the challenge. But now you're an author, so it doesn't matter, right?
Well,
when you're an author, they let you do it.
Yeah.
I think I'm not going to respond to that. Yeah, we're not gonna touch that one.
People can get this book today anywhere?
Yeah, bookstores, Amazon, whatever you want to do.
Okay. It's 2024, How Trump Retook the White House and the Democrats Lost America. Something this program can get behind. But this is very, very good. You ought to check it out. Thanks for coming in, pal.
Thanks for having me, guys.
I love talking to him. I love talking to anybody who writes a book that has that much of just a clear window into stories you've never heard.
Yeah.
And obviously he has a full lineup of them. And I really encourage everybody to buy the book, but also just an incredible guy, great personality, somebody you should read on the reg in the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
One of the few guys that we interact with on a almost daily basis where they're honest. And there's tons of stuff that the guy's written that I've disagreed with over the years. And obviously there's some copy editor. He used to be at the Washington Post. Can only imagine the headaches that he had to go through to try to get truth to light in that organization. But like he wants to do it the right way. He gets well sourced, and I think these stories are incredible. There's nobody who's going to get under cover because there's so much of what they deal with on a day-to-day basis that you can't report.
Mm-hmm.
But in long form, in a book like this, you're going to see some stuff and hear some stuff that you've never seen before. Good stuff. I'm glad he came in here. Good luck to Dawsey and his book sales. Our question of the day, as you remember, was what's going to happen to the America Party? What is it? And what's your take on the whole America Party? We want all of that. When you like and subscribe, we'll read it, distill it down, and we'll give you 3 good answers that we think best summarize all of your points of view when we come back to you on Thursday. And recall, we're going to keep adding a Friday here for a bit.
Yeah.
Feels like a nice groove for us. We like this.
Yeah. There's a lot of good news to cover.
Yeah. There really is. There really is. So with that, I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you again to Josh Dawsey, and thank you to the Minions. Remember, if you have not yet, subscribe to the YouTube. It's more fun in video. So until next time, Minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you Thursday. Stay ruthless.